Hi, it's X, and welcome in today's dungeon walkthrough. And before we begin to this video, I just want to tell you what's the goal of the video. This video is aimed at people discovering Mythic Plus for the first time, or that aren't still very sure of what it's all about, and it will explain the basics of what to do in the dungeons. These will take place in low level keys between +2 and +3 over all the dungeons available for the seasons 1 of Dragonflight. Later on, I'll release videos on higher keys going through that same schedule, +2 to +3 for beginners, 4 to 9 for, I won't say intermediate. Well, I go a bit more in details, and +10 to 14 for, I want to say, confirmed. Well, it will be more about how to play around with this season special affix, and lastly, +15 and over. Well, you should be near the end of your journey to become a Keystone Master and get your mount. All of these videos will take place on my Holy Priest, which here is the talent tree that I personally use. And quick disclaimer, this isn't forcefully the best talent tree for Mythic Plus. This is just the one I like to use. Other choices can be better, or you might just feel like there's something else that you like. You can choose whatever you want. There's nothing better than the thing that you are comfortable with. To end this introduction, I'll tell you that I plan making those Road to Keystone Master videos on as much specs as I can during Season 1. As you get into the dungeon, you'll be met with 2 packs of Algeth'ar champions that you'll have to watch very closely as they use power attack that deal really high damage to your tank. One too many of those would get really hard to hit through. You also encounter Algeth'ar Thundercaller that casts Thunder Strike, creating a circle around the player and dealing damage as well as leaving a magic dot at the end of the cast. You want to be able to dispel the debuff as the cast ends in order to minimize the damage. They also cast Thunderous Bolt, a simple damage dealing spell that can be interrupted. Just before the first boss, you'll also face a Storm Drake that casts Crackling Storm, creating a soul on someone's feet, dealing damage and leaving a thundery tornado that also deals damage if you get too close to it. They also have a frontal lightning breath that you must dodge. After that, you're already at the first boss, Heimdall, that you'll only have to drop to 10% HP to finish the fight. You will first use Dancing Blade, that will create a soul under someone's feet, then throw a blade in the soul, dealing damage on impact and leaving your soul swirling around and dealing damage if walking to it. Next, you will use Hall of Valor, that deals damage to the entire group and cause several drakes on the edge of the platform. They will rush in one after the other, leaving a static field under them that deals damage if you're into them. And then Ball Lightning will spawn. They are those little tornadoes that you see that move to the front or back of the platform, dealing damage if you get through. Be very wary to where you're standing and where the drakes are to avoid being hit by both abilities at best. Lastly, Heimdall will use Bloodletting Sweep on your tank, dealing damage and leaving a permanent bleed, meaning that if you don't defeat him fast enough, you'll have your mana drained. As you get into the hall itself, you'll face a whole lot of new enemies, those being Stormforge Sentinel, that cast charge spells, creating a large circle around them, dealing damage to anyone still in at the end of the cast. Crackles, that create a line of lightning between the monster and the non-player, dealing damage to anyone stepping into the fight. And Projectile Light, that he uses upon reaching 30% HP, creating a dispellable shield on him. Valhalla Runecarver, that are really dangerous. They cast Edge, that you must interrupt at all costs, as it's a channel spell that deals really huge damage over time and will be more than likely the death of the person targeted. They also cast Shattered Rune that you can't interrupt, that also deals damage to a non-player. Valhalla Mystic, that are also really important as they have a huge healing ability in the spell Holy Radiance that must be interrupted,
They also cast Rune of Healing that creates a rune on the ground that heals anyone standing in, monster or player. So you'll have to move the monsters out of the rune and get in to get passive healing. Valhalla Shield Maiden that your tank must take special care of, because they use Breach Armor, that is a stacking debuff reducing armor by 10% per stack. They also have Mortal Hue, a frontal that deals damage, as well as reducing all healing received by 10%. Valhalla Marksman that will mainly spam Snapshot, dealing damage to another player of the group. Leap of Safety that they use when they have someone in melee to create some distance, and Penetrating Shot, a really hard-hitting frontal that you really have to dodge. Once in the Oz, you can either go for Fenrir or Irja, it doesn't really matter which one you do first. For me, we went first for Fenrir, so I'll go over what's happening there first. As you get into his zone, you'll face another Storm Drake, just as the same as the one you've seen earlier in the dungeon. You also see your Hoof Bulls that patrol the area and might get pulled. They use Rumbling Stomp that makes them charge in a straight line, dealing damage and knocking back anyone in the line. They also enrage when they reach low HP. The Fenrir fight happens in 2 time. You'll drop him first to 60% HP, then he'll fall back into its den. I'll go over the fights upon at its den, as it stays the same thing. After dropping Fenrir, as I said, he will fall back to its den, where you will have Ebon Claw Wargs on the way, that may be very dangerous as they use Leap for the Throat and random targets, leaping to them and dealing damage to all players near the target. After clearing some wargs, you'll get in front of the den and resume the fight. Take special care of his interrupt, Unnerving Hole, that will also spawn 3 wargs once Fenrir is at its den. Be sure not to cast when it's about to go off. Fenrir also uses Ravenous Sleep, targets him among players, then he leaps to each one of them, dealing damage in a zone and leaving a permanent stacking bleed. You want to spread out when he starts casting, or the bleeds will start to stack really fast and you won't be able to get through. Fenrir's most important ability is Claw Frenzy, that deals huge damage in a 12-yard radius. You want to be stacked close to Fenrir, as the damage will be split between everyone in the 12-yard radius. His last ability is Scent of Blood. Fenrir will start to chase a random player of the group for 6 seconds. Simply run away, use movement abilities to not let him get to you, and you'll be fine. Once he's dead, you get a speed buff, and you can go back to Irja. Valhalla Purifier, that honestly don't do much more than casting Cleansing Flames that create a swirls under a player's feet, dealing damage if you don't move out of them. Valhalla Aspirant, that use Blast of Light, dealing damage in a line in front of them and knocking back players. On hierarchies, this is definitely going to one-shot you. Other ability is Valkyria's Advance, targeting a player, creating a soul under them, and then the aspirant will jump into the player, dealing damage to anyone in the soul. Targeted player will forcefully take damage, so make sure that they are full HP before it goes off. You'll also find 2 kind of mini bosses, Solstein and Olmir the Enlightened. I won't go over their spells right now, as they will be basically the same as the one that Irja use, so I will just go to Irja and you'll see what's happening. Irja, depending to where she stands, close to Solstein or Olmir, she'll use different spells. When she's close to Solstein, she'll start using E-spells, those being Eye of the Storm, creating a bubble on the ground that you'll have to get in. After a bit, she'll start dealing important damage on the group. This is a very tense moment in terms of healing, you'll have to keep your personals for that moment. She also casts Arcing Bolt that deals damage to another player of the group, and then jumps to anyone close to them. You want to be spread out to avoid generating too much damage. After using both Solstein or Olmir abilities, Irja will use Shield of Light that works just like the one used by the aspirant, a frontal that is use damage and knockbacks. Simply don't be in front and you're fine. Olmir spares are Sanctify that creates a lot of light ball moving around from Irja or Olmir into every direction. Stand far away to have the time to judge all the orbs' direction and you'll be fine. The other spell is Expel Light, creating a circle around another player, dealing damage at the end of the cast, and replicating the cast if someone else was in the circle. Once both Erja and Fenrir are defeated, you can go and get through the middle door in the hall to face the last two bosses. But first, you'll have four last monsters. They are the four kings, Renwolf, Aldor, Bjorn, and Thor. They all have a special ability, namely Unholy Yell, that deals damage and interrupt casts if not interrupted, Sever, that just deals high damage to the tank, Wicked Dagger, that deals damage and leaves a debuff reducing healing received by 50%, and Code Ancestor, that spawns an ad, slowly locking to the king, that heals them by 50% of their health if they get in melee. Every time you kill a king, you'll give his special ability to the other kings. You want to kill Thor in last in order not to give Code Ancestor to every king, other than that the order doesn't really matter. Once the four kings are dead, the tank will be given the Aegis of Agramar that will spawn God King Skovald. You will first use Fellblaze Rush, targeting another player, creating a circle around them, then rushing to the targeted player, dealing damage and leaving a dot on anyone in the circle. Next, he will use his main ability, Ragnarok, dealing huge damage to the entire group. Your tank has to use the Aegis of Agramar that will create a huge shield in front of him. You have to get behind in order to survive the cast or you'll die. After that, the Aegis will be dropped and picked up by Skovide himself. He'll use it as well, meaning that the only way to deal damage to him is to get behind him. While Skovide uses the Aegis of Agramar, he also spawns several Flame of Woe. It will die out quickly, but they will fixate a player of the group, walking to them and leaving a wake of flames behind them that deals damage if you stand in. Once he's defeated, you'll be able to face Odin instantly. Keep in mind that you don't have to kill him, only to drop him to 80% HP. Odin will spawn Spear of Light at a player location, dealing damage to the entire group upon spawning and then every 2 seconds. The spears also radiate glowing fragments that are light orbs slowly moving in straight line. If you get hit by one, you'll take damage and get stunned, so take care to what they are or this will go bad. Odin spawns an ad in the name of Stormforge Obliterator that will start to cast Surge. You have to focus the ad and block him from casting because it deals huge damage, and every time an Obliterator casts Surge, the next one is casted 100% faster, up to a point where it's simply always using the spell, wiping your group. In the meantime, Odin will use Radiant Tempest, pulling every player to him and creating a huge circle around him. You have to move out of the circle as fast as you can with movement abilities, or you will die if you're still in at the end of the cast. Lastly, Odin will use Runic Brand, marking every player with a rune that deals damage, but if you walk onto the corresponding rune laying on the ground, you'll instead get fully healed, clean from a debuff, and get a damage and haste buff. Simply be very aware to the rune and spear placement and you'll be fine, dropping to 80% and get your loot. What's Vex? See you next time.